Hello and welcome. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today as we discuss how to gain high user adoption with your CRM for oil and gas and take time to review the powerful features of your CRM. Have you asked yourself, is your CRM for oil and gas product living up to the hype and doing what you expected? Is your team doing what is expected in CRM? Are you taking advantage of all of the features and functions CRM has to offer, or are they still on your later list? My name is Jean Degner, the account manager for all of our CRM for oil and gas customers here at Ledgeview Partners, a business and technology consulting company where we focus on transforming business one relationship at a time. In today's webinar, Steve Reybrock from Ledgeview Partners will focus on how to increase user adoption across your organization, from the newest CRM user all the way to the most veteran user on your team. But it all starts with how you set the CRM tone and how it will be used. Our goal here at Ledgeview Partners is to ensure that every single user, customer, organization is getting the most out of their CRM for oil and gas that they can. We do have a lot to cover today, but before I introduce our presenter, I do have a couple of quick housekeeping items to cover. First, I want to mention that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email with a link to access the presentation on demand, and we do encourage that you share this with others in your company and network. To ensure the best audio quality, we have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you have a question, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. We have a really full agenda today, but if we do have time at the end of the presentation, we will field as many questions as possible. But if we do not get to your question, we will follow up with you after the webinar. Now, let me introduce our presenter today, which many of you have already worked with in the past, Steve Reybrock. Steve is our CRM product consultant and managing consultant with Ledgeview Partners and knows the lubricant and fuel marketers that use CRM better than anyone else that I've ever met. And Steve manages all of our CRM for oil and gas implementations and gets to know each and every lubricant and fuel marketer very, very well. From coast to coast, he does ensure that our CRM customers implement a product that is, and they do get what is expected and what is delivered. Through his years of experience, he's also the expert on how oil and gas distributors can gain the most efficiency and sales productivity through technology like CRM. And today, Steve is going to show you exactly how that is done. Steve, thank you for joining us today.
All right, thanks, Jean, for that introduction. So most of the time when I do these, there's quite a bit of time I actually spend in CRM. This is the first webinar I'm going to do that's strictly discussion and PowerPoint slides. So I'm using kind of the PowerPoint to kind of keep me on track. But again, this is all not so much about usage of the system, meaning how to use a certain feature. It's what features are available, what do you expect your team to do. So I'm not going to rattle off all of these questions here that are on the agenda. Jean kind of covered all of them already. This is kind of what we're going to try to answer today. I did want to point out that I'm kind of going to present this kind of slanted toward that manager or an owner or somebody who's ultimately responsible for CRM. But realistically, we're all responsible for CRM, right? It's not just one person, but you'll hear me many times going like, who's held accountable, who's holding others accountable. So you'll see that theme throughout the system. What else did I want to talk about? Hopefully when you leave here, you'll just come away with just one or two golden nuggets. Some of these things I'm sure you know, some of them you may not affect you, but there might just be a couple things that you can take away to help change the way you're using CRM. I also want to point out that before I jump into user adoption, I want to make sure everybody on the call is even aware of what is in the CRM in the product that you have. Some of you are pretty new to the system. Some of you have been using it for years and you might have forgot about some functionality. So the first part of this presentation is, it could take 15 or 20 minutes. I want to go through everything And there's a good time for you to take some notes on, are we using that feature? Are we using it the way we want to? This is kind of a cool thing. Why aren't we doing this? So let's make sure you're on track with what you want to get out of the system, what you want to use, and then let's focus on how we're going to get the users to actually do that. The other thing I thought was kind of interesting, as people signed up for the webinar, we took a little poll to ask how your adoption was, and it's interesting to get 3 or 4 people from the same organization with different perspectives, meaning somebody might say, user adoption is 25 to 49%, and somebody else in that same organization might say 75 to 100. And I think that's really just how you look at it, your perception. So it's maybe good to get that out to the group, to ask everybody, on your team what they think the adoption level is. Okay. So enough of that. Let's rock and roll. So again, these first few slides are really going to talk about the features, and it's important to kind of answer that question, you don't know what you don't know. So I want to make sure you're well aware of all the features we have, and you can decide then if you're using them correctly, if you're using them thoroughly enough, if you even need to use them at all. So I'm just going to go through these. So lead management. Kind of an obvious one, right? Keeping track of your leads. Is your team doing that? Do you want your team to do that, right? You enter your leads, you qualify them or disqualify them, and just use a nice feature with CRM to manage your leads. Account management. That one is probably, everybody's got to be doing that, right? And analyzing your customers, analyzing your prospects, seeing what's going on, running reports based on your account. So that's kind of an obvious one. I think everybody's using account management. Contact management, maybe you're not doing it as thoroughly as you'd like. So keeping track of all your contacts, right? That's important, right? Knowing email addresses and phone numbers of the people who work at your accounts. There's even a report that you can run that I was so proud of. Well, probably somebody on the call who reached out to me and said, we need a new report. We want a report of all of the accounts in CRM that don't have a contact. I mean, what a great report to try to get to be empty, right? That's a really nice report. You should really, if you want to get your data cleaned up and have good data, right? Contact management is real important. Opportunity management. I think most of you are using that. That's kind of the biggie here with our product. Keeping track of all your opportunities. That's pipeline management. There's a lot of dashboards that go with that. For you Chevron marketers who are on the call, there's also integration back to Chevron's mPower CRM. So we've got that integration going. Hopefully you're all taking advantage of opportunity management, and then doing a good job of it, right? It's not just, hey, are we entering our opportunities? Do you have good estimated close dates? Are your estimated gallons, somewhat reasonable? It's more than just having an opportunity out there. You want to make sure it's in the right sales stage. So use it, and then let's hold people accountable to keep it accurate. Quotes, if you've got your team cranking out quotes all different throughout your organization, maybe you want to consider using the quote module where you can actually generate a nice price list, a quote to put in front of your customer. And the nice part about that is it's all data driven and it's already then right in CRM. Activity tracking, a monster feature, right? Is everybody using activity tracking the way you want, right? If you're the manager, if you're the owner, if you're the person holding the team accountable and you want them to enter activities, and activities are kind of serve two purposes, right? To keep track of things you've done, but also to keep track of things that you need to do or want to do in the future. It can just make an organization so efficient. When you hire somebody new and maybe transfer them a boatload of accounts and there's all these activities tied to them from the past and even in the future, I mean, that new person is going to have such a jump start within the organization. And also the existing people, right? Just to be more efficient. So activity tracking is a big one for me. Notes is another way to, enter information on an account or an opportunity or a lead. Kind of the cool thing about notes is that's where you can attach a document. So if there's a couple of documents that you'd be nice to have right in one spot in CRM, tied right to the account, notes is a great place to do that. So these are kind of the basic ones. I think most of you are probably pretty comfortable with what these are. It's really just a matter of, okay, are we handling these the way I'd like? and is the data accurate, right? Or maybe there's some of these you're not doing and you want to focus on a couple of these. All right, moving on to data integration. This would be with your back office or your accounting system. I would say everybody is integrating their accounts, products, and order history. Those are kind of the required trees. So I think everybody on this call is probably getting that data from their accounting system. There are 4 optional files that some of you are taking advantage of and some may not be aware of, but there is a generic price list file that you can bring over. So if in your accounting system, or even, I guess I don't even care if it comes from your accounting system, it doesn't matter where it starts, but if you have 2 or 3 or 4 different generic price lists, it might be nice to have that available to you in CRM to help you generate a quote. When you pull up a product, you can see the different tiers of pricing that you have. Again, that has nothing to do with the customer at this point. It's just generic price lists. Account notes. Those are simply if you and your accounting system are putting in notes. Maybe your credit department enters notes. You can send over the last 30, 60, 90 days worth of notes from your accounting system and have them in CRM tied right to the account. The bottom 2 are relatively new within the last year or so. I don't remember exactly when we rolled them out, but product balances. So we had a request from some folks that said it sure would be nice to be able to look in CRM and see how much we have on hand of each of our products at each of our locations to help me make better decisions. And then the last one is very account specific. So if you want to send over from your accounting system all the products a customer is signed up for and the price they would pay if they were going to buy that product today, you can build and send over an account product price file, and we'll load that in the nightly data load. And it'll be right there when you're looking at an account. You can click a button and boom, see all the products they're signed up for and what their price is if they were going to buy that product today. So hopefully you're taking advantage of all of this. If not, you've just gathered your first takeaway. All right, some other features that we have. Gross profit and volume goal setting. So this is actually setting goals at the salesperson, department, product category, product segment level. So that rolls up across departments and throughout your organization. What's your GP and volume goal? And if you set those goals, there are some really nice reports and dashboards that let you analyze goal versus actual. Right? So how are you doing? What gets measured gets done, a very, very powerful tool. I strongly recommend setting goals. If you've got a little problem with your gross profit being accurate, because sometimes rebates and whatnot skew GP, that's a problem with some accounting systems. Volume is volume is volume. We almost can't screw that up. So I'd at least recommend setting volume goals. So you've got something to reach for. Now, if you're doing that, and so you're setting goals, you've got a really good pipeline. Now the next feature here, gap to goal analysis, just ties all that together, right? So now you've got this goal you want to hit. We've got tied into your back office, so we know your actuals. We can look at your pipeline to see what's in your pipeline. We can look historically at, what's your win rate and all kinds of other calculations looking back in time, and we can do some analysis to let you know how you're doing compared to your goal. So it's this gap to goal analysis. We'll end up being able to tell you how many opportunities do you need to add to your pipeline to hit your goal. So super, super powerful tool, very little work for you. Some lots of cool numbers come out of that tool. I'm going to pick up the pace here just a little bit. Equipment tracking, a way to track your equipment that you have out there. Most people think of this in terms of tracking their tanks, but it can really be tracking just about anything. So you put in a piece of equipment, tie it to an account, so then you know where it is and when it was put there. If it is a tank, you can even put in what product they promised to put in that tank, how many gallons they promised to put in that tank each year, and then there's some analysis we can do to see who's kind of not making the grade. Fuel price notifications. Some of you are also in the fuel business. If you want to get your fuel prices out in front of some of your customers and prospects, there's a feature where you can blast some fuel prices each day or really whenever you want. Territory management, dashboard 98, just a cool way to help you be a little bit more efficient. Maybe when you're planning your day, you're going to go visit a couple of customers or a couple of leads. Who else is in the area that you might want to visit as well? Or you're out and about and somebody ends up canceling an appointment on you, so you've got 2 hours to spare. hey, territory management might help you figure out who's nearby, and maybe you can pop in and visit them. Estimated days between orders. Just a great way for you to go in and analyze a customer and put in, how many days should it go before they place an order where I'd be a little bit worried, right? So you can enter that number of days. It can be different for each account. And then there's a dashboard you can look at to see who kind of fell off the radar, and maybe you want to make a call to them. So nice feature there. Suggestive sell, very easy to set up and pretty powerful. You just set up a relationship between your product segments. Basically, if a customer buys this product segment, they typically buy this product segment. If you set that up, probably take you an hour. Now the suggestive sell button on the account screen comes to life. Whenever you hit that button, it will analyze what the customer's buying, what they're not buying, look at your little matrix, and suggest to you what you might want to talk to that customer about. Competitor share of wallet tracking, just going in with all this knowledge you have in your head about your customers and your prospects on what they're buying from others that you'd like to steal that business. Just record that as competitor share of wallet. And then you have that knowledge right there tied to the account. Expense reporting, just a little feature that we have. We only have a couple clients using this, but if you have pretty sophisticated expense reporting where your team has to track their miles and all their expenses and it's kind of cumbersome, maybe CRM is a way to do that. So you can record expenses and miles, and then when you're all done, once a week or once a month, you can run a report. And then that's where CRM is basically done. So then you would take that report, and then whatever you would do with that within your organization, right? You probably have to staple your receipts to it and send it off to accounts payable or payroll or to your supervisor, right? Then you're kind of on your own. But that's kind of a nice feature if you have trouble with expense reporting. All right, cruising along here on just a few more of our features. Again, the purpose here is to make sure you're aware of these features, and are you using them? Are you using them well? Should you be using them? Account activity, goals and tracking. So this is not used by very many folks. I don't know, probably not the most powerful feature we have, but if you've got a couple hundred accounts, let's say, that you really want to make sure you stay connected with, these would be annual goals. So you can maybe say, hey, for this customer, I want to connect with them at least 6 times. So I could set a goal of 6. And then throughout the year, CRM is going to be keeping track of the activities that you had with that account. And it'll basically add 1 every time you complete an activity. And then there's dashboards you can look at to track to see how close are you to connecting with this account, the number of times that we wanted to. Outlook integration, for those of you who are Outlook, with CRM, you can integrate with Outlook. So kind of a nice way to track emails. If you want a copy of an email to get popped into CRM, it's pretty easy to do that. Also, your activities that you have in CRM, show up in Outlook. So it's just kind of nice to see that. And then another one for, if you don't have any power users in your company, most everybody does, but there's just a really, I don't want to say super easy, you've got to be a little bit techie here, but I can do it, so it's not the hardest thing, but the ability to create your own views, your own charts, your own dashboards. So even though we feel that we've got a very robust system with all kinds of stuff, people are always dreaming up just the one thing that they want, but it's kind of specific to them, maybe to their sales team, maybe to the manager, maybe to the owner, and they sure do wish they had a dashboard that had this, and this on it. Well, it's pretty easy to do. There's views you can create, charts you can create, and you throw all that together on a dashboard, and boom, you now have your own dashboard. So we have lots of people doing this, and it can really just enhance, enhance your experience with CRM. All right. Dashboards. We have lots of dashboards. I covered some of these when I was going through this, so I'm going to kind of do this a little bit quick, but there's dashboards that are kind of help you analyze your leads. Lots of dashboards when it comes to your opportunities or your pipeline, right? If you care about gross profit, revenue, volume, how many opportunities do you just have out there, right? So nice way to graphically see that. There's some gap to goal data, some analysis on a few of the dashboards. There's some trending dashboards. I kind of like this aged opportunities dashboard. That's a way to just for a manager to go look to see, hey, how many opportunities might be kind of falling off the radar, right? They haven't been updated in 30 days, or they've been stuck in a stage for 45 days, or the estimated close date is in the past, right? Just that dashboard should really come up clean. And then there's a whole nother set of dashboards that are just for the individual salesperson, for them to go in and look at just their stuff. So nice charts for an individual person, and then lots of charts for managers. Some dashboards to analyze your competitor share of wallet. That activity tracking dashboard I talked about, that's really, you know, for an account. How many activities was my goal, and how many activities did I have so far this year? And then there's a handful of them that are these goal versus actual dashboards, kind of from a company perspective, from a sales manager perspective, and from a user perspective. So hopefully you're using a lot of these features. Then just to kind of wrap up on some of the dashboards, with that equipment tracking module, there's some dashboards that account past estimated days between orders. That's that dashboard you can look at to see if anybody fell off the radar. And then there's actually a handful of dashboards and charts right on the account screen. So they're not in the dashboard section, but as most of you know, when you're looking at an account, there's lots of features right on that account screen, right? You can look at the order history dashboard, right? Take that order history data and show it to me graphically so I can kind of see if a customer is getting better or getting worse, or just kind of look at trending. This 360 main form is kind of cool because it'll take all of the ship tos that are linked, or the sub accounts that are linked to a parent account, and show you all the data related to the parent and all the ship tos with a nice trending chart that shows you volume over the last 12 or 13 months. Then there's also that 12-month product summary grid that you get right on the account screen, just to see what does this customer look like the last 12 months, and when's the last time they ordered each of their products. What was their profit per unit over the course of those last 12 months? So a lot of cool stuff right there. And then right off of that account screen, not so much a dashboard, but just, you know, one click away from looking at the detailed order history tied to that account. So lots of stuff there. Hopefully your team is using most of this. Reports, not going to read every single one of these, but a lot of reports related to accounts, right? Ranking reports, a lot of variance reports. If you want to get real detailed, there's even an order analysis report, which basically lists every order. So if you wanted to look at your orders from 2 days ago, what went out, you can have your team analyze that report, see if the gross profit looks good, or if somebody made a mistake on a price or what have you. A lot of reports on your pipeline data to analyze close rates, or just get a detailed list of what's on your pipeline. And then if you want to analyze your sales team, right, there's goal versus actual reports, there's growth reports. How's your team using the system, right? So there's some usage reports. You know, how many activities did every user enter in the last 12 months, or the last 2 months, or the last week? How many leads and opportunities did they each create? So a lot of stuff there. And then as far as some data, what I would call data integrity reports, I think I touched on this one already. You know, give me a list of all my accounts that don't have a contact. Here's another really powerful one. Give me a list of all the accounts that don't have an open activity or an open opportunity. To me, that's a list of all the accounts that have kind of fell off the radar, right? If they don't have an open activity, what am I going to do next week, next month, next year for this account? Or I'm not working an opportunity for them, what is going to trigger me to do anything with that account, right? Now, it's probably in my head, right? That's the answer, or in my little black book. Well, let's just get it in CRM, right? These are some great tools to drive behavior, right? If we as owners and managers, you know, are bringing up these reports and driving behavior to get these reports cleaned up, right? I think we're going to get some action out of the group. And then the last one I listed here was just every night we do the data integration, and there's a data integration error report. Very important to keep that cleaned up so the data in CRM is clean and matches what's in your accounting system. So we really want to make sure that there are a couple eyes on that, because sometimes somebody kind of gets behind, and if nobody's kind of keeping an eye on it, then it can go weeks, and all of a sudden that report gets out of hand and it turns into a project than just a 5-minute cleanup job. Right. A few other reports, a few product analysis reports where you can analyze things down to the product level. This one's kind of cool. It's existing business growth report, where you can look at the business I had, let's say, last year. So what customers did I have and what product segments were they buying? And I'll take that same group and compare it to this year. So did my existing business go up or go down, right? What's going on with my existing business? Then there's a couple of cool summer reports where you kind of control how you want to group the data. For those of you who know, I'm referring to report 170 on dashboard 97, where you can pick how you want all the data scrunched, right? I want it by department, product category, product segment, or I want it by user and department, or whatever. So you basically are telling the system how you want to shuffle and summarize the data. All right. So, boy, we've got all this information, all these tools in an easy-to-use format, all this information related to accounts. We've got this really cool tool. We spent all this time getting it up and running. Now what? How do we get everybody on board? How do we get everybody using this? Well, it really starts with making sure you know what you want the team to do. So I probably stress user adoption as my #1 concern on every project I've done. I've said, look, we're going to figure out this data integration. We're going to get people trained. We're going to get the machines all set up, right? All of that we can just do. But once we go live, then the real work starts. And if we don't take that seriously, what can happen is 6 months can go by and a year can go by, and but this really didn't turn out like I thought it would. And that's probably because we all just didn't plan for that and get that going. So let's just kind of go through some of the bullets that I've got captured here, and we'll see where this takes us. So as far as gaining and keeping user adoption high, you really need to have that owner or champion of CRM. So I know everybody really has to be responsible for it, but if there isn't somebody who just is driving it, it's so easy for it to just slip. So that's real important. I've always mentioned this when I'm working with the team. Who's going to own this? Who's going to hold people accountable? Who's going to just kind of keep the pulse on things, right? And there can be a power user, right, who really knows how to maybe crank out some charts and run reports or whatever, but that might be different than the champion, right? It could be the same person. A lot of times this champion ends up being like the owner of the company or the sales manager. But it could be anybody, but they just have to really understand their role, and that owner or champion also needs to have enough power to be able to, drive behavior. The other thing that's real important is from top down, everybody just has to buy into this, because if there's any hesitation or, oh, you can do this if you want or whatever, and it's just kind of carefree, guess what? People just aren't going to do it. It just has to be driven throughout the organization. Just, the owner wants it, the sales manager wants it. Like, this is how we run our business, right? And then these owners and managers and these champions, they all have to come up with an agreement on what do they want out of CRM, right? Because if you don't do that, then how can you put in writing, and I strongly recommend you put something in writing that you expect your team to do. So one of the things that I always preach when I come out and train a company for the first time is, when we're all done with the training, make sure that, when I turn it back over to you, right? So now they know how to use it. Like, what do you want them to do, right? Have clear, I strongly recommend a written document that you hand out to everybody that says, okay, now that we know how to do this thing, starting today, here's what our organization is going to look like. Here's what we're going to do. And it might take us a while to get there. So here's what we're going to do the first week. Here's what we're going to do the second week. Here's what we're going to do the third week. And when we're all done, 6 months from now, here's what we're going to look like. So really just have that plan. And if you have that and you set the expectations and you hold people accountable, the folks who are doing this just say, what is user adoption? Like, what's the big deal? This is like so easy. This is just what we have our people do. That's how we work here. And then other people struggle with it. So I think this is probably one of the biggest reasons, is it's just not clear. So, all right. So I kind of touched on this before I went to the slide, but yeah, communicate clear expectations to your team. We talked about, have that documented plan. The other thing that you want to probably touch on here is, when you get a system, or when you're going to roll out a new feature, you really want to make sure everybody's aware of if there's any new processes, right, or any changes to existing processes. So that could be something as simple as, when we get a new customer, they finally sign up with us and I fill out the credit app. Okay, that used to go to accounting. Now, what does accounting have to do besides set up the account in the accounting system? Well, wait a minute. There's just a little bit, there's a new step we have to do in CRM. Or there's this process that we want to add to the step because of CRM. So think of your processes when you think about this tool as well, and make sure everybody just knows what those changes are. The other thing to do is as you hire new folks, be sure to include the CRM expectations as part of your onboarding process. So real important there. I'd also point out at this point that your expectations might be different for, let's say, a salesperson versus somebody in marketing versus somebody in customer service versus somebody in management, right? There might be different expectations. So, okay. The other thing that I've heard, I don't have it on the slide here, that I've heard is actually have somebody sign the document with those expectations. And I've got one client who every year they revisit them. They have maybe a sales meeting early in the year, maybe it's in January, and they have a freshed up document of how we're going to use CRM, and everybody signs it. And so it's a very official, polished, look, this is how we are going to run our business. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. So I kind of like this part about you hire somebody new, just make sure they know just how you do things with CRM. All right. So here's where we just talk about accountability, right? If you're just getting started or if you had it for a while, you just have to hold people accountable, right? If you have these expectations documented and then people aren't following them, it's really easy to say, okay, look, these are the expectations, this needs work, right? You can always use that documented list of expectations to kind of coach people. So as you're doing your weekly or bi-weekly coaching meetings, right? Talk about CRM, talk about the expectations, right? When you're having your group meetings, your sales meetings, many of the clients I talk to now who have been using it for a while, boy, they're just like pulling up CRM and analyzing the pipeline right in CRM, right? It's not like everybody comes with a lot of reports. You just fire up a laptop and hook on the projector and let's talk about the pipeline. Let's talk about what's looking good. Let's talk about what we need to work on, right? So looking back again at the expectations. The other one that's kind of nice is just, especially if you're early on in the process, is keeping a pulse on how knowledgeable all the users are. So what I've seen some folks do is maybe every week or two, just send out a little questionnaire to the users, and it might be 5 or 6 topics, and it just, maybe they could answer with a level of 1 to 10, right? How proficient do you think you are at navigating through CRM on a scale of 1 to 10? And usually those expectations kind of drive that questionnaire. So if you want them to be managing contacts in the pipeline, right? It might be, how comfortable are you with entering opportunities and moving an opportunity through the sales process, right? And if you get a lot of 4s and 5s back, right? Maybe that's a topic for a sales meeting. If you get a lot of 8s, 9s, and 10s, okay, everybody knows how to do it. Now let's just hope they're actually doing it. So that's a nice trick to just throw out a questionnaire once in a while. And early on, I'd almost recommend you do that every week for about 3 or 4 weeks, just to see if a major expectation, a major proficiency is kind of fallen by the wayside and you need more training. Assign a power user if you don't have one. Maybe there's somebody in the organization who just wouldn't mind being that kind of that go-to person who's really comfortable with the system, is not afraid to, create a view and build a chart. Having that person as kind of a right-hand man or a go-to person can be very helpful. Obviously, we're here, so you've got the Ledgeview Support line. If you have a question, if you are wondering about a feature, how something works, give us a call, drop us an email. Obviously, if something isn't working, definitely that's who you should be calling. All right, just kind of checking the clock here. I'm falling just a teeny bit behind, so I'll pick it up even faster. So what else as far as user adoption? I would say, if you're you've kind of doing okay, but there's maybe some features that we've discussed already that maybe when we first kicked off the project and finished everything up, you had a list of features that you thought you'd introduce later. Maybe it's time to start introducing and using some of them new features, right? And with them new features might come some new expectations. So you might want to revisit your later list or review the list of features that we just talked about. I think I covered just about every major feature in the system. So hopefully that list is a good list for you to kind of look at and decide, what should we do the next 12 months with CRM? We got this cool system with all this stuff. Let's get everybody good at the basics, and then let's have a plan to just keep this thing evolving. And then another bullet as far as the new features, just make sure you're keeping updated on those new features, because we add them to CRM. We do an email blast when we're going to push out a new release. Sometimes based on how complicated they are, we'll have a webinar. And we almost always put a video in CRM that kind of describes what happened in each release. So if you've kind of fallen behind, you can just go to the workplace video section. And if you kind of scroll down to the bottom, that's where we have all the videos associated with each release. So you could maybe just watch the last couple release videos if you haven't been keeping up, and you'll see some of the new features that we've introduced that maybe you haven't. So a lot of cool stuff there. All right. Another thing I want to point out is, the system has a lot of features, and those features originally came from us kind of getting the ball started with this product. And then over time, I would say more of the features come from folks like you. So I'm sure all of you have ideas on how we could make this system even better. So what do you do if you have an idea for a new report or a new dashboard? Best option probably is to call the support team. So if you call, have a little discussion with our support team, they might have, I don't even want to call it a workaround, but they might have a way for you to get exactly what you need, right? You might just not know about it, right? Or we might determine that, hey, that feature doesn't exist. If we want to add a field to a screen or a report that doesn't exist, there's two options that you have, right? One, we have this enhancement list. So we get ideas from lots of people, and when we hear the same idea multiple times, those ideas tend to bubble to the top, and those are the ideas that show up in a future release, right? So your ideas go on this enhancement list. There's no guarantee how fast or if ever it'll bubble to the top, right? It's just this big list of all cool things we could do with the system. But if it's something you really need, right? It's like, boy, I really want, whatever. I really would like this feature in the system. I'd be willing to pay something to get it in there. Basically, those requests then kind of bubble to the top, right? We'd schedule a developer and give you an estimate, and then we'd work with you and we'd get that feature, that report, that dashboard, whatever built and rolled out into the system just as basically as fast as we could get the resources scheduled and it rolled out. And then ultimately that gets rolled out into the overall product, because we don't want anybody to be like a one-off. We want everybody to be on the same platform. So somebody else might actually run that report that you requested, or you might be the only user who runs the report that you got, but you end up getting what you want. So there's always options. So that's what you do for if you have an idea that you think would make the product even better. All right. Whew. So that's a lot of stuff. So what's my summary here? We're definitely here to help as much as we possibly can, but ultimately you have the power and the influence to make CRM a big success. I'm hoping that today, where we went through all the features and you look at how your organization is using CRM, if you look at some features that you maybe weren't even aware of, how can you use CRM? Now, you as leaders in the organization need to figure out what of those features do we want to do? How do we want our users to behave, right? How do we want them to use this? And then just make a plan and get everybody on board and just execute the plan. And I know it sounds simple when I say it, but I know it's a lot of work, right? We're changing behavior, we're changing just change, right? Change is scary. But if we're all patient and we just put together a plan and we just keep holding people accountable and keep working with them to clearly explain the expectations and why you're expected to do it and the value it is for them and the value it is for the company, why you're doing it. I mean, I think when I watch the companies who just totally have this down pat, and I see the companies that struggle, it's like, oh, I know this can be done because I see it. I see it all the time. And I see the success that you can have with the system and the power that this system has. But it all starts with the leaders working their way down to just clear expectations and holding people accountable. So I'm hoping you've come away with just a couple bullets. Before I turn it over to Jean, there probably aren't any, or somebody would have interrupted me, but Chad or Jean, did anybody have any questions? I see I got about a minute or two left. Okay, silent?
I do not have anything coming through at this time.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Jean. So with that, I think I'm just going to fire it back to Jean. She has a couple of important wrap-up messages and some other resources for you to take advantage of. So, Jean, back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve. So I know that was a lot of information to cover, so please be sure to access the video library within your CRM for oil and gas for additional informative videos on all those features and functions that are available to you. Of course, you may also visit our oil and gas page on our website for additional resources, which include industry-specific case studies, short targeted videos on some of those features, and also topics that include data migration and user adoption. And I also encourage you to navigate to the Resources tab to the eBooks and White Pages section and review our new ebook, 11 Ways Lubricant Marketers Use CRM to Drive Success. And of course, as mentioned, you may also reach out to us directly if you have any additional questions or comments regarding your CRM for oil and gas product, or have any questions or interest in any of our business and technology consulting services. Thank you for your time today. And again, please feel free to share this with others in your organization and network.